Hey everybody, welcome to the People's United Bank post-game show. I'm Justine Ward alongside Vin Parisi. The UConn Huskies back in the win column, defeating Manhattan by a final score of 61-46 as the Huskies move to 8-3 on the season. And Vin, Huskies lost their last game against a ranked opponent. They need to get these non-conference wins. How'd they get it done tonight?
Yeah, listen, they still haven't lost anybody that they're not supposed to. But tonight, you felt that it could be a little ugly in the beginning. Number one, you got to remember Dan Hurley's guys came off a long break from final exams. So a lot of teams come out rusty after that exam break. Number two, Steve Masiello gets his Manhattan team to play unbelievable pressure defense in the full and the half court. But the third factor was Jalen Adams just not ready to play from the get-go tonight. We saw with foul trouble, and it lingered and really affected him for the entire game.
UConn didn't shoot that well, but Manhattan shot just over 34% from the field. What did you see from UConn in their defensive effort tonight?
Well, just active. I mean, Manhattan offense is not Manhattan's strong suit, but you have to give Dan Hurley's defense credit. I mean, it was 12 steals, it was 9 blocks, and it was forced turnovers and UConn basketball, and they manufactured points off their defense because, listen, this was a rock fight in the first half. They didn't come out smoking offensively either. And you got to remember, this is a Husky team that only hit 4 3-pointers tonight. Jalen Adams, a non-factor. They needed to get it cooking in other ways. Defensively is where they really held down the fort tonight.
And they are gearing up for conference play in the new year. How do you think the defense can carry over to that?
I think the defense, this is going to be a staple of this team. I don't think we're ever going to look at a Dan Hurley box score with UConn this year and say, oh my God, they didn't play hard. They didn't get after it defensively. What I am concerned about is Jalen, and you heard Dan Hurley say it in the postgame to Maria, Jalen Adams has had stretches these last few weeks to where he's still looking like a young basketball player and some silly fouls and putting himself in tough predicaments. He's the senior leader and one of the best players in the league, and Dan Hurley needs better play on both ends moving forward.
And as you said, you heard him mention it post-game about Jalen Adams. The Huskies did finish strong, though, after that first half. What adjustments did you see, and how were those effective in the second half?
Well, the one thing is that they went on a stretch to where they started to push the pace, get out on the break, get some easy baskets. Once again, the defense turned up a notch. You know, they were able to knock down a few shots. Carlton gave them some good minutes inside, but listen, this is one of those games where they just had to grind and get through. It was going to be ugly from the start, and it was one of those rough ones. Survive in advance and get the W.
All right, well, let's take a look at some of the stats from tonight's game. They are presented by Town Fair Tire. And as we mentioned, they didn't shoot the ball all that well, but neither did Manhattan. UConn won the battle of boards there with 40 compared to 37, and a lot of points in the paint. And we heard heading into the halftime that Danny Hurley wanted those fast break points. They ended up with 21 and finished, again, turnovers were still an issue for UConn, but not as many as the Jaspers had with 24, Ben.
No, but you know what? It was one of those ugly offensive games because of two hard defensive teams. I heard Dan Hurley say when a Masiello's coach team and a Dan Hurley coach team gets together, you could see this. Both teams shot in the 30s throughout, and then 27 and 17% from downtown. So it was just one of those defensive battles.
It did get a little chippy, too. For now, we're going to send it over to Gary Apple and Tariq Turner from Gamble Pavilion. Hey, guys.
All right, Justine, we thank you so much. And, you know, one of the things we spoke about during the course of the game is production from UConn outside of the guard position, right? Josh Carlton had 11 points in the game. He had 5 rebounds. He had 4 block shots. The question is, how did they get Carlton to rise to the occasion, A, on a more consistent basis, and B, against better competition?
Well, I think one thing that he can always bring is a rebounding and the defensive intensity. And sometimes if he's not scoring the ball, other parts of his game kind of disappear. And obviously you'd love to see him in double figures every game. We saw some flashes of that early in the season, but the last few games up until now, he's been kind of quiet. And I think he has to be aggressive on the glass, get better position in the post, be more active in the paint when they're going against the zone, and just find ways to be effective on the glass. And defensively, obviously, he has to continue to assert himself, blocking shots, deflections, and being the anchor defensively.
Well, did a terrific job coming from the weak side defensively on a number of occasions in tonight's game. Listen, it was no secret. Dan Hurley, we heard him with Maria a couple of moments ago. He was not pleased with the game that Jalen Adams had tonight. How do you make sense? Here's your senior leader, right? He had 2 points, careless turnovers, 1 of 4 shooting, and Dan was not going to use the early foul trouble as an excuse. How do you make sense of what he did tonight?
I think that was good. He didn't. I mean, that's a cop-out. You can't give a senior leader of the caliber of Jalen Adams the excuse to say, oh, he had 2 fouls, so that's why he didn't play well. His body language wasn't great. He was 1 of 4 from the field. He's too good of an offensive player to only shoot 4 times. And even if you're not scoring the ball, find other ways to impact the game, whether playmaking. He didn't take care of the ball. He was loose with the ball. His body language didn't look great. He didn't look like he was engaged. He wasn't vocal. He looked like he just wasn't himself. And certainly coming off the previous game versus Florida State, he didn't shoot the ball well. So now you have 2 back-to-back games when you didn't play well. And for this team to be an elite level, a postseason NCAA tournament team, they need Jalen at his best. He is the best player on this team and one of the best players in the conference. And if you're going to play bad, I get it. You might not shoot the ball well, but you can't turn the ball over. A lot of those turnovers were unforced as well. So he has to get himself going. I think most importantly with Jalen, he said this before, he can't get off the slow starts. He's had a number of games this year where he just waits until the second half to get going.
Yes.
And then by then, sometimes it's too late. When you're playing good teams, high-caliber teams like Villanova coming up, you can't wait until the second half. You have to get going from the beginning.
So you mentioned Villanova. They've got a game Tuesday, does UConn against Drexel. We'll see it right here on SNY. And then next Saturday at Madison Square Garden against Villanova. That's their final non-conference game before getting into conference play. Must they guard against any sort of a letdown against Drexel, getting ready for the defending national champs?
Oh, they're not good enough to overlook anyone. And Danny Hurley, that's why they had a 3-hour practice today when we thought we were going to be here for
You exaggerate a little. It was 2, but it felt like 3.
It felt like 3.
Yes.
I mean, they were going through like a full-fledged practice, screening, cutting, intense, like they were getting ready for preseason. And that's the kind of team that Coach Hurley has right now, a team that's not good enough to overlook anyone. They can't take anyone for granted. And I can guarantee you tomorrow or when they get in the film room, they're going to feel like they lost this game the way Danny Hurley gets on them about those turnovers. Those are the things that they have to get better at as they get ready for Villanova.
All right, so I know they missed you back in the studio tonight, but it was great to be back together with you.
It was.
Here at the arena.
And you know what? Just to be in the nutmeg state, as you call it,
yes,
was a pleasure. You know?
I know Vinny and Justine love that. All right, for Tariq, I'm Gary Litson, and back to the gang in New York, guys.
All right, thank you so much, guys.
That was nice work by Tariq right there.
Now, you heard Gary and Tariq talking about Jalen Adams. He has not had 2 points or fewer in a game since his freshman year. Got into that early foul trouble. How does he play smarter on the floor?
I think it's about mindset with Jalen Adams. I think he has all the tools to be the player of the year in the AAC moving forward, but he doesn't have the mindset right now. And this has been Dan Hurley's mantra about him for the past month is like, listen, I need you to not defer. I need you to take charge. I mean, we've seen several games this year, and it's not just the slow starts. We've seen some foul trouble a few weeks back, but then he bounced back in the second half. And Tariq mentioned waiting until the second half. Come out and be aggressive from the start. Dan Hurley's Rhode Island guards were like junkyard dogs. They were angry. They were mean. They came at and attacked you, and that's the mindset he needs from Adams right now.
Junkyard dogs. I like that.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes.
Well, the Huskies still had some good ball movement, though, even without the production of Jalen Adams. How did they do that?
They did. Well, I think from the get-go, I think Hurley knew that this was not going to be one of those nights where the basketball goes in early on the perimeter. Manhattan's very active in their very aggressive matchup zone. So they played a lot of zone offense. They spaced the court. They had 4 perimeters out there. Ball reversed from side to side. Beautiful. They did a very good job of running guards to that high post foul line area. They got high-low action, skip passes, and boom, right there. That's a possession Dan Hurley loves. We saw it the first month of the season, him constantly talking about the ball not sticking, not over-pounding it and moving it from side to side. And I think that's what got them going.
14 assists for the Huskies tonight. Coming up on the People's United Bank post-game show. We still have a lot to do. We're going to hear from Christian Vitale. We're also going to have the full game highlights coming up. We're just getting going.
The UConn men's basketball postgame show is presented by People's United Bank, where our know-how starts with knowing you.
Here, Alterique Gilbert with the air ball. Jalen Adams then misses his only shot of the first half. Terrence Smith takes an ill-advised shot For the air ball here, Huskies started 1 for 12 from the field, 28% shooting in the first half. Oof. After an 8-0 Manhattan run, Eric Cobb misses the layup, put the freshman Sidney Wilson the big putback dunk there, Vin.
Big-time athleticism, and I think Wilson's going to have to bring a lot of this during conference play because I don't know what Dan Hurley knows if he's going to get much out of the bigs early in January.
Now here Smith takes it himself. Nice step to the hoop for the layup. Manhattan turned it over 12 times in the first half. Now to the final seconds of the first half, 23-15 UConn. Gilbert misses the shot. Josh Carlton there for a putback. Huskies pumped up with a 10-0 run at the end of the half. Now to the second half, starting where the first half left off. Adams finds Carlton for the dunk. 35-19 UConn. Soon later, Christian Vital driving through defenders here and gets the layup.
Nice split. Nice split. Carlton comes to the top. Boom. Sees the open gap. Nice finish with the soft touch at the end.
Huskies up 14. That ball movement we talked about. A pass around here to Gilbert. He hits the corner three and gets fouled. He would complete the 4-point play to put UConn up 18. Later on in the half, Huskies up 15. Vital takes it in the lane, gets the bucket off the glass and the foul. Vital led the Huskies with 13 points. UConn wins 61-46. So let's take a look at the final score here. As we said, Christian Vital led the way for the Huskies with 13 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 steals. Nice line for him. Alterique Gilbert also in double figures with 12 points and 4 assists. Here's our Maria Marino with junior Christian Vital.
Christian, a loss to Florida State a week ago. How do you feel like your team responded after a tough week of practice?
We responded the way we were supposed to. Obviously, having a whole week to practice. Coach was on us, the first couple, and then going into the game day, he started to relax a little bit. But he was just on us, telling us we got to play better, which we do. I definitely have to play better. I kind of took myself out of that Florida State game. Being one of the leaders and one of the, guys who play high minutes on this team, I got to make sure that I'm on the court. So it was a learning experience for myself and the team, and I think we responded the way we were supposed to.
For you personally, what was working tonight?
I just honestly let the game come to me. I was much more relaxed. Also, like you said, having that week, I had a whole week to, just think, just watch a lot of film. And then I saw where I was messing up at, where I was getting myself in bad spots. And I was able to keep myself out of those spots for most of the game.
We saw a confrontation in that second half. From your perspective, what was going on?
I just felt like I got undercutted. But, play is over with. I'm fine. I'm walking. I'm healthy. Everyone else on my team is healthy. And we got the win.
What do you want to clean up before Drexel?
Just clean up the end of the game. That last 3 minutes was ugly for UConn basketball. And we kind of had a bad reputation of, not finishing the games when we're up. So, we just got to do that. And it's going to take guys like Alterique, Jalen and myself to make sure that us as a team are connected in them late games. And I believe we're going to do it.
Christian, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, so that was Christian Vital. You heard Maria ask him about a tough week of practice and how it translated on the court. Now, keep in mind, the Huskies came off of a week with no games. They also had finals. And we saw a slow start tonight, Vin. It's happened a couple times this season. How did they get off to better starts here moving forward?
It has happened a couple times, and I'm not trying to make excuses for it tonight, but I remember back into the coaching days, coaches were always scared to death at that first game back from final exam break because you could come out rusty offensively, and we saw some of that. Now, I also think it was heightened by the fact that Jalen Adams was a non-factor in the first half and Manhattan was very active defensively. But Dan Hurley is going to spend time on these guys' mindset and coming out sharper because when it gets to conference play and you're playing on the road at Cincinnati, you're not going to have 20 minutes to warm yourselves up. You're going to have to come out focused, on the same page. Dan Hurley does not have a bunch of freshmen out there playing on the perimeter. He has upperclassmen and he has transfers. He's going to have to see that take the next steps.
And another thing that Dan Hurley has really been stressing is finishing games strong. And you heard Christian Vital talk about that. What did you see in that last 3 minutes that he was referencing?
Well, I think that he slowed himself down. I think Christian Vital and Alterique Gilbert at times this year, they're at a 9 or a 10 speed when Danny has said he wants them at a 6, 7, or 8 speed. Flying the plane, playing off of Jalen Adams and getting the front line involved. And I think you saw some of that in their top stretches.
All right, well, the Huskies still getting it done. Your final score here, 61-46. We still have much more to do on the People's United Bank post-game show. We're going to hear from the head coach, Danny Hurley, coming up. Your People's United Bank player of the game, Christian Vital, doing it all for the Huskies. Vital led the team with 13 points. He also led the team with 8 rebounds, but even more impressively, Vital with a career-high 7 steals. The junior getting it done at both ends, and Christian Vital is your People's United Bank player of the game. Pretty impressive stat line there, Vin, for Christian Vital. He said in the post-game interview he's letting the game come to him. What did you see from him tonight?
I think you saw someone that can prove to you that it's not just about perimeter shooting with Vital. And this guy's rebounding the basketball better than any player Dan Hurley has right now, and he can be a stat sheet stuffer, especially when these big conference games roll around. And there's a reason there that even on a night when no one was shooting the basketball from great, you saw the fact that he played 31 minutes. It's because Dan Hurley knows that he fills a lot of stats in the box score. He also does a lot of things that do not show up in the box score. Plays a great floor game. Dan Hurley loves his motor. If he's not in foul trouble, you're going to see him play in the 30s throughout.
Alterique Gilbert also getting it done in the backcourt for the Huskies. What did you see from him, and how can he improve upon his performance tonight moving forward?
Well, Gilbert is suited for Dan Hurley's style of offense and the way he likes to attack with interchangeable parts and an attacking 3 to 4 guard approach. Now, Alterique will have stretches to where he struggles in terms of taking care of the rock, and he can get a little turnover prone. But he is a key piece offensively to this team because they have proven, Justine, that they are not a one-man show. They cannot solely rely on Jalen Adams, and they can't put all that pressure on a Christian Vital. I think Gilbert is one of the biggest keys to this basketball team this year because Dan Hurley doesn't have a dominant big guy down low to throw the basketball into. Terrence Smith, he needs 3 to 4 guards to play well each and every night.
You mentioned turnovers in that explanation, Vin. How do the Huskies do a better job of handling basketball?
I just think it's getting into the film room and it's focusing and it's not getting yourself out of control too much. Some are out of, some turnovers Dan Hurley's clapping because it's aggressive play on the break. Others he's very, very frustrated by. And when you talk to Dan Hurley and you see his post-game press conferences recently, especially the Florida State game, the Arizona game, he felt those were winnable games. But they had 4 to 6 minute blocks and stretches to where not only was it cold shooting, but they turned the basketball over, and it paid. And I think that's something you're going to really see them focus in on, getting ready for conference play.
They also got some nice contributions from Sidney Wilson, the freshman. How important is that moving forward, that he can rely on somebody like that coming off the bench?
Yeah, some big athleticism along the baseline. You remember, Eric Cobb and Josh Carlton are pretty much showing you that they could be solid, serviceable bigs, some size in there carving up, but the Huskies do not have a dominant front line. And the front court has been a question mark since AAC Media Day in the first month or two of this season. But Wilson gives you very, very active minutes. He's a big-time athlete. He's only scratched the surface of his potential. And if Dan Hurley continues to attack with that small ball approach, Wilson's athleticism could be a nice piece of the puzzle.
What's the importance of their bench moving forward? Again, we're getting ready for conference play.
You need secondary contributions. I don't think that this is going to be a team that plays 9 to 10 guys, but I do think that this is going to be a team to where, and it showed last year when they were shorthanded, you can't just go to war at Cincinnati and at these other places with 5 to 6 guys. They will get worn out. We saw that with last year's Huskies team. Dan Hurley needs that solid 8-man rotation.
Well, let's hear from the head coach, Dan Hurley, with our Maria Marino.
Thanks, Gary. Coach, a lot of improvement in that second half, but what do you take away from this game?
Just a win. I mean, avoiding, what would have been a really bad loss. I thought we played better in the second half. Credit Manhattan, though. Kind of knew they were going to respond based on their last effort versus Hofstra. They're going to come out, play with a lot of energy. I just thought that, some of it was us and a lot of it was Steve Masiello and how hard he gets his team to play.
How'd you like your team's defensive effort? 9 blocks tonight.
I liked it. I thought we really guarded well offensively. Obviously, we have a lot to look at. Turnovers reared their ugly head again. But I just, we're playing really, really hard, and we're really trying. We just have to just kind of keep getting better.
How about Jalen Adams? Did those 2 early fouls kind of take him out of his game?
I don't think so. I think he's played so many games at the college level right now that, it's all about the mindset. We need him to play better. We need him to be more locked in. I thought his second half turnovers for a player his caliber probably should never happen. He should be mentally much stronger by this point in his career and should be able to handle foul trouble better.
We saw some chippiness tonight, probably for the first time all season. What did you see on those plays, and how do you feel like your team responded?
I just think when you put a Steve Masiello coach team versus a Dan Hurley coach team, I think there's probably got a chance for there to be some scuffles or at least some talking. And I got nothing but respect for how hard their kids played. They're obviously they struggle offensively, but man, they play really hard and defend.
Thanks a lot, Coach. Back to you, Gary.
Before we go to break, let's take a look at who is lighting up the boards presented by Connecticut Lighting Centers. Christian Vitale led UConn with 8 rebounds. Josh Carlton and Terrence Smith also pulled down 5 boards. Still to come on the People's United Bank postgame show, we're going to take a look at the upcoming schedule for the Huskies. What's on the horizon after they get this win under their belt? Still more to do. Stay with us.
The UConn men's basketball postgame show is presented by People's United Bank, where our know-how starts with knowing you.
Here's the drive of the game presented by Subaru. Second half, Christian Vitale takes it in the lane, gets the floater off the glass and the foul. Vitale with a strong second half. He led the Huskies with 13 points. That is your drive of the game. So here's a look at UConn's next 5 games. The Huskies host Drexel on Tuesday night. Then a week from today, UConn at the Garden facing off against Villanova. Then conference play begins. The Huskies open their American Conference schedule at USF. So, Vin, as we take a look forward here, they're going to play Drexel. They're also playing a huge game against Villanova.
It's gonna be fun.
What improvements do you need to see from the Huskies?
I really think that over the course of the next week, we're really going to see Dan Hurley go back to that offensive turnovers factor. He's been talking about it for the last week or two. Leading up to this one tonight, the key stretches in big games to where they've been very loose, turning the basketball over. This is still the second month of the Dan Hurley era, so they're going to get used to things offensively, philosophically, very different from last year. But just being in sync, being on the same page. Obviously, Jalen Adams, their leader, not out there tonight, throws you off. But you're going to have cold shooting nights. But you want to take care of the basketball and be a cohesive unit offensively.
You mentioned Jalen Adams. We heard from Dan Hurley postgame saying that his senior needs to be more locked in. What would you like to see from Adams before conference play?
I thought that Tariq Turner made a great point late in the second half when talking with Gary in this game. And he said, okay, he picked up the second early foul tonight. He was in and out of foul trouble, but that is a cop-out. I mean, this is not a freshman or a sophomore. This is Dan Hurley's senior leader. This is what many believe is the preseason AAC Player of the Year, a first-teamer. This is the guy that Dan Hurley is going to put a lot on his shoulders. And Dan Hurley has spent a lot of time forging this relationship, spending hours upon hours in the film room, having meetings, studying the game with Jalen Adams. And we have still seen stretches to where he doesn't come out with that killer instinct. So that's what Dan Hurley's been talking about. He's been challenging his leader, and that's going to be interesting to see as conference play begins, even Villanova, and this next week or so.
Well, UConn's next game on SNY is this Tuesday night as they host the Drexel Dragons at the Excel Center. Coverage begins at 6:30 with the pregame show, followed by tip-off at 7 p.m. Again, the Huskies get it done against Manhattan, 61-46, your final. Vin, any thoughts before we go as they get ready to take on Drexel next?
Well, I think one thing Husky fans are going to be very, very happy about, there may be some tough stretches offensively as this team is still trying to get on to the same page, but defensively, these kids play extremely hard. They defend, they get after it. Dan Hurley gets his kids to play hard, and I think Husky fans are going to enjoy that passion.
All right, for Vin Parisi, I'm Justine Ward. That will do it from our Lower Manhattan studio. studios. Don't forget to stay tuned for Geico Sports Night coming your way at midnight. And we're going to leave you with some sights and sounds from UConn's win over Manhattan. Have a great night, everybody.
You can just do things that you don't need the coach. The Huskies, they get exactly what they want. The pulling kick, the skip pass, shifts the defense.
Oh, here comes Terrence Smith. Down the lane, going to the back, off the glass and in.
Off their defense here, it starts with the block shot.
Carlton at the buzzer, gets it to go, Josh Carlton.
The length and the explosiveness is all there.